If you go into a mommy group on Facebook, oh boy, are you going to get some crazy stuff. Some people will say Oreos will increase your milk supply. It worked for me. It's wild out there. You do not need to spend all your time, money, energy, and stress just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You should be knowing exactly what you're dealing with so that you can create a plan on how to handle it. I'm Jaimie Zaki, IBCLC and Mama 5, and this is the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast, where pregnant and new mothers learn how to prepare for and overcome breastfeeding challenges without being controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety. Each week, we'll answer your questions, share breastfeeding success stories, and inspire you to shut out the toxic whispers of the world and embrace your God-given intuition to make confident breastfeeding decisions. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. I'm Jaimie Zaki. Last week we talked about low milk supply. What are the signs and symptoms of low milk supply? How to know if you have real low milk supply or perceived low milk supply. If you missed that episode, go back and listen to it because that's really important. Today we are going to talk about addressing the root causes of low milk supply issues. A lot of moms are worried about low milk supply and get these lactation cookies, lactation teas. They take all these herbs and they're like, I'm doing everything. They say, oh, I've got to drink blue Gatorade or the pink drink from Starbucks. Just all these remedies for low milk supply. Some are rooted in science, but not all. A lot of times moms end up like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, right? They just do all the things to try and increase their milk supply, but they're not doing the right things based off the reason they're struggling with milk supply. See, that's where we have to understand the root cause. Because if you are trying to increase your milk supply by drinking blue Gatorade, I'm going to tell you right now, y'all, none of you have a blue Gatorade deficiency. If the actual problem is your baby's not removing enough milk, your body's being told to make less milk, I hate to tell you, but you ain't gonna get very far. You might have a temporary boost because, I don't know, you have more electrolytes or you are being more diligent about pumping more often. So you're putting more demand on your body because you're worried about low milk supply. And it seems like it's because of this blue Gatorade, but it's not. And I think that's what happens a lot. We talk about causation versus correlation and everything. It gets really muddy when we're dealing with low milk supply. If you go into a mommy group on Facebook, oh boy, are you going to get some crazy stuff. Some people will say Oreos will increase your milk supply. It worked for me. It's wild out there. You do not need to spend all your time, money, energy, and stress just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You should be knowing exactly what you're dealing with so that you can create a plan on how to handle it. Today, we are going to talk about the most common root causes of milk supply issues that I see in my practice. No, I'm not going to give you a step-by-step of how to fix it because it really is so dependent on the mom and baby, but you're going to have more of an idea of what could be going on, and you're going to have some ideas on how you can advocate to improve the situation. So let's dive into the first thing. I am crazy about latching. Latching is the foundation of breastfeeding success. One huge cause of milk supply issues is latching issues. If we have a poor latch and the baby's not latched onto the breast well, they're not going to be able to remove milk well. If they can't remove milk well, that signals the body to produce less milk. If your baby has a tongue tie, which is where the tissue underneath the tongue is too tight and it limits the baby's ability to latch properly and feed effectively, they're not going to be able to get enough milk out. Okay, that is not a steadfast rule. There are a lot of babies who have tongue ties and do get plenty of milk. It's more complicated than that. We will do a whole other episode on that. In the meantime, if your baby has some kind of reason that they cannot latch effectively and they cannot remove milk effectively, that will negatively impact your milk supply. Okay? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to optimize latching. You're going to want to optimize milk removal. You might have to pump for a little bit. There are so many different things you would want to do in that situation. If you think you have a milk supply issue and your baby's latch is a big factor, latching with confidence will help you. Latching with confidence will walk you through exactly what you need to do to get a better latch, to work with your baby, whether or not you need to use a nipple shield, how to do that. There's even a breastfeeding your tongue-tied baby guide in there if you think that a tongue tie could be part of the problem. It might not be. It could be positioning. It could just be a common latching problem. Point being, Latching with Confidence will walk you step by step through how to determine what your next move needs to be if you think your baby's latch is having a negative impact on your milk supply. The next common cause that I see of breastfeeding issues, of low milk supply problems, is hormonal. So when I'm talking hormonal things, I'm talking about insulin resistance, diabetes, PCOS, hypothyroidism. There are so many things with our endocrine system that can negatively impact breast milk production. And that's because breast milk production is very dependent on the endocrine system. Let's talk about insulin resistance. Insulin resistance occurs when our body cells become less responsive to insulin. So our body needs to dump more insulin to manage glucose levels. Insulin actually plays a role in regulating prolactin, and prolactin is responsible for milk production. So if there's high insulin levels, can mess with prolactin levels and lead to milk supply problems. This is not a hard, fast rule. So there's going to be moms out there who have diabetes, insulin resistance, who have PCOS, who have thyroidism, and they're not going to have any milk supply issues. And that's fantastic. But you never know which one you're going to be. And if you're dealing with milk supply issues, it's really important to make sure that we're looking everywhere to figure out why. So what you would want to do in that situation, obviously, is identify that that could be a problem for you and start managing blood sugar levels. This looks like maybe changing your diet, getting more fiber in your diet, maybe getting more proteins and fats in your diet. That doesn't mean going keto. It just means eating a more well-balanced diet, more veggies, right? I'm talking about that fiber. You can get more exercise. I am going to talk soon with my friend Sarah. She specializes in gestational diabetes, but it applies to all kinds of diabetes and blood sugar management. She has so many wonderful tips on how you can improve your body's glucose insulin balance and management system. Wow, that was a weird way of saying that. I don't know if you can hear my kids in the background, but they are in the other room and they are having a lot of fun, and it just completely distracted me, so I apologize for that word salad. As we're talking about hormonal situations, like if we have low thyroid function, poor thyroid function can impact your hormones that are related to milk production. PCOS can impact prolactin. All of these endocrine disorders can impact prolactin. So whether that's high prolactin, low prolactin, like it can impact how your body makes milk. So if your prolactin is negatively impacted, then odds are your milk supply is going to be negatively impacted. So how do we handle that? First, we need to identify it, often done with blood work. I am a lactation consultant, not a doctor, so I cannot diagnose these issues for you. However, I can help educate you on what we want to see, what we need to advocate for, and what you need to ask your doctor about to get to the root cause and find a solution. If you are worried that one of these issues could be playing a role in your feeding challenges, or maybe you have PCOS, or you already have issues with insulin resistance, or you have a thyroid condition, and you're pregnant and you're worried about how that's going to impact breastfeeding, I do offer one-on-one consultations to help you prepare for that and understand your specific situation so you can have a plan. Or if you're already breastfeeding and navigating it, you can create a plan and have actionable steps to improve the situation. So, one cause of low milk supply that I don't think is talked about enough is actually low iron and anemia. That's basically where you have really low red blood cells or hemoglobin, right? That can be caused often from birth trauma. If you had low iron in pregnancy and then had lost a lot of blood during birth, you are setting yourself up for some kind of anemia, right? Breast milk is made from our blood. If we don't have enough red blood cells, we might have trouble making milk. So there's some dietary changes that you can make, right? You can make sure you're getting enough red meat. legumes. You can make sure you're getting enough vitamin C. Your B12 levels can be directly related to your iron levels. So there's a lot that needs to be looked at there. Iron supplements could be needed. I personally don't love the popular iron supplements that you might get through prescription because a lot of times these are not super bioavailable. They can cause constipation issues and just like a whole other host of issues. There are iron supplements that are more easily absorbed by the body, and I definitely recommend looking into those if you feel like you need iron supplements. Moving on to another cause of milk supply challenges is something called insufficient glandular tissue. I worked with a mom recently who suspected she had IGT during pregnancy because she wasn't seeing any breast changes. She had asked her midwife, a lactation consultant, a couple lactation consultants about this, and they all just kind of were like, "Oh, well, we'll just see. We'll see. There's nothing we can do about it now. We'll just have to wait and see." By the time I met with her, she was, I think, 6 to 8 weeks into breastfeeding, and she was supplementing, and she felt very frustrated because she felt like she didn't have answers. All of these people who told her, like, "I don't know, we'll wait and see," they didn't know how to help her. And breastfeeding was really important to her. We were able to identify the root cause of her milk supply issues and create a plan for optimizing breastfeeding. Even though she wasn't able to make a full milk supply, we were able to work on her milk supply in some ways, but we were also able to make breastfeeding a positive bonding experience for her and her baby, even if she wasn't exclusively breastfeeding. And it was really beautiful to see how she was able to find peace around the situation because she had answers and she understood what was happening. A lot of moms who have what's called IGT or insufficient glandular tissue can feel very helpless. And I don't blame them because it's not one of these situations where we just pump more and we make more milk. When we take that approach, we work really hard and don't see results, and it can become exhausting. Insufficient glandular tissue is basically where we didn't have enough glandular or breast milk making tissue develop during puberty, during pregnancy, and now there's just not enough breast tissue to make milk. Now, it's going to be so unique based on each mom because some moms will have maybe certain quadrants of the breast that have enough glandular tissue or what you would expect, but other quadrants don't. We expect all four quadrants to have equal ish glandular tissue. Maybe one breast has more glandular tissue than the other. So there's different degrees of IGT. And it is true that you kind of just have to wait and see what you can do. You just kind of have to wait and see what you will produce. We can't predict it, but we can have a plan for how to handle it. If we see markers during pregnancy, we can plan on how to optimize and maximize milk production and breastfeeding experience. If you suspect you might have IGT or haven't seen breast changes during your pregnancy and you want to make sure that you have a plan in place for milk production once your baby arrives, click the link in the show notes or go to littlebearlactation.com and schedule a prenatal consult. We do those telehealth and we can set you up with a plan if things are not going the way you want them to, you know exactly what to look for, and we can optimize your breastfeeding experience. One often overlooked cause of low milk supply is actually retained placenta. A retained placenta occurs when part or all of the placenta remains in the uterus after birth. Retained placenta can cause hemorrhaging, infection, but because of the hormones, it can also cause milk production issues. The release of the placenta is what triggers what we call lactogenesis 2, which is that increase of milk supply postpartum. After colostrum, your milk starts to transition. So if you still have placenta in your uterus, your body hasn't gotten the message that it needs to transition into making milk. And so this can be a huge issue. Things to watch out for are fever, heavy bleeding, abdominal pain. But sometimes there are situations where none of those things are happening. We don't have any of those obvious signs, but we can't identify any other cause of low milk supply. And so we're like, okay, let's get an ultrasound to rule out retained placenta. And lo and behold, we find retained placenta. So it's definitely something that we always need to have in the back of our mind if we're dealing with low milk supply that seems to have no explanation. Once you get that placenta removed, it is possible to work with your body to build up your milk supply. So it might be hard and there's probably going to be a transition period, but we can still optimize breastfeeding and optimize your milk supply. Something that has been seen a lot among lactation consultants is milk supply issues in moms who are taking encapsulated placenta pills postpartum. I do not judge you if you believe in they call it placenta phagy, eating your placenta, using the dried out placenta being put into pills. It's called placenta encapsulation. A lot of moms will take this for mood balancing and overall healthier postpartum. And there's a lot of chatter that it increases milk supply. But kind of going back to those hormones that are in the placenta, for some people, it actually can hurt your milk supply. And I know there's not a ton of science on this, a ton of studies out there to really say one way or the other, but we have seen that some moms who have no explanation for low milk supply stop taking their placenta pills and have an unexpected increase in their milk supply. So, with my second baby, I was taking encapsulated placenta and it was amazing for my recovery in so many ways. However, I did notice a delay in the onset of my milk. So, I'm not sure if it was related. I did not have any serious milk supply issues with him. So, I cannot say one way or another. But if you are taking placenta pills and are dealing with an unexplained milk supply issue, reducing the dosage or removing it altogether and seeing what happens could be a good next step. We just touched on a lot of the different causes of low milk supply issues. What can you do if you are pregnant or currently breastfeeding and you are worried about these situations? First, you can work with a lactation consultant to get a full breastfeeding evaluation and understand if there's any functional or anatomical issues at play. Rule those out first, right? So we're talking IGT, we're talking tongue tie, we're talking feeding behaviors, we're talking like feeding habits. So sometimes, guys, sometimes it is literally just as simple as you need to breastfeed more often. It can be that simple. And I didn't even mention that because it's such a simple one. Next, we might need to look at getting some lab work done, advocating for getting lab work done, understanding what it's telling us in relation to breastfeeding, then make some lifestyle changes or diet changes based on our health status. If we know there could be an issue with insulin resistance, we make lifestyle changes to help balance our blood sugar. If there's a likelihood of anemia and iron issues, we make lifestyle changes to address that. If we think it could be deeper with hormonal imbalances, things like retained placenta, we work closely with your medical doctor to create a plan that works for you and your baby, that addresses your goals and your needs. Uncovering and addressing the root causes can be really complicated and feel overwhelming, which is why personalized support is so important. If you're experiencing milk supply issues and want to get to the bottom of it, I recommend booking a one-to-one consult so that we can create a plan specifically tailored to your needs. Remember, healing from postpartum is a lot, and improving milk supply takes time and patience. But if you address the root cause, instead of just trying all the things that the blogs, TikToks, and Facebook mommies said, when you take a direct and personalized approach, you can have a positive breastfeeding story. You do not need breastfeeding to be perfect in order to be positive. This work takes time, but with consistency and the right support, you can turn things around. I'd love to support you on that journey. If you are ready for a one-to-one consult, visit littlebearlactation.com and click the button that says Get One-to-One Support, and you can book a private consultation today. All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.